This Plein Air Easton special live event is brought to you by PNC Wealth Management, committed to putting you first. Visit pnc.com to explore what PNC Wealth Management can do for you.
That's an interesting thing too.
You just flap it in your Velcro?
Yeah, my Velcro with my little baby too.
Some weekends seem to last forever when nonstop applications become nonstop discovery. And in the heart of Maryland's Eastern Shore hides an annual haven of art, instruction, and entertainment. The country's largest outdoor painting competition, Plein Air Easton. There, you can trade in the ordinary routine for an energetic festival, exchange housework for a night or two at a bed and breakfast, and swap never enough time with we should do this more often. Take a weekend for yourself to explore, to paint, to experience something new. Your immersive art weekend begins at pleinaireaston.com.
Hello, welcome. My name is Tim Wagon, another edition of Coffee and Conversations. Today we are inside the Avalon Foundation, and we are here to speak with three individuals who took a very unique trip this past spring on a train, painting in plein air. And I want to thank PNC Wealth Management for being an underwriter and sponsor. Real quick right now, Nick's getting the video ready. We'll introduce the guests when we come back. This is a world premiere video done by Jen Whalen with music from Austin music icon John D. Graham. We can go to the video now, Nick, if you're ready.
Down at the Kingdom Hall, and it's 5 a.m. There's nobody there but him. He can hear the glory coming, but the glory ain't here yet. There's a ghost on the train, and he walks past the brakeman, and he walks past the porter.
feel like for Amy and Charlie, who haven't seen that yet, that they could just start yapping right away about that. What's such beautiful footage there and wonderful paintings, and I'm sure it brings back a lot of memories for both of you. We're with Charlie Hunter, Amy Erickson, and Jen Whalen, who just so everybody knows, because we are going to get into audience questions as well as maybe some questions from Facebook. I was told Charlie is sort of the logistics of this project. Amy was the sort of the new artist who came into the project, invited, I think, by Charlie amongst others. And then Jen is kind of the administrator for what's going on now with the project. Charlie, just to get started, I'd like to just ask you a question about your fondness for trains in general and how that morphed into what we just kind of witnessed.
Yeah, I'm kind of soft in the head on the subject of trains. I just really like trains. All right-thinking 2-year-olds love trains. This has never evolved beyond that. And it's my dementia about trains is well known. And Larry Moore, the guy who is doing this wonderful series of paintings of strange animals in domestic interiors, called me up and said, "Is it possible to do a train trip where you would get on a train, paint for a day, and then ride one stop down and paint again?" And fortunately, that's a question that's right in my wheelhouse, and I was able to answer that, and we came up with this particular concept.
And there's a reason behind all this.
Yeah. Okay, so in my other life, I run this company called Roots on the Rails, and the idea of that is long-distance train trips with live music on board. So I'm very aware of what's going on in the American Railroad network.
Can I just interject to say he has the train schedules memorized?
Yes, I do. But the new head of Amtrak is the former head of Delta Airlines, and he wants to get rid of the long-distance trains in America, the trains that really knit the country together. His focus is he wants to do corridors, and they're releasing a lot of very factually skewed information to make it appear like the long-distance trains are money losers, no one rides them, and they're not needed anymore. So this trip was on the Southwest Chief Line, which is the old Santa Fe Railroad line between Chicago and Los Angeles. And what we did was overnight from Chicago to La Junta, Colorado, then paint in La Junta for a day, the next day get on the train, ride one stop down the line, about an hour, to Trinidad, Colorado, paint for a day in Trinidad, then one stop down the line, up Raton Pass, through Raton Tunnel, at 7,300 feet, the highest point on the Santa Fe Railroad system, paint for a day in Raton, then one stop down the line to Las Vegas, New Mexico, one stop down the line to Lamy, New Mexico, which is a ghost town with amazing railroad crapola in it. And then that's the stop for Santa Fe. And then we did a pop-up show in Santa Fe at the gallery that I show at there.
Okay. And how old is the Santa Fe line when you say the Chief line? How old is that line?
The famous train, which was the Super Chief, was introduced in 1937. And that ran until the advent of Amtrak, who then took over the operation of America's passenger trains on May 1st, 1971. And by 1974, the Santa Fe decided Amtrak's standards were not quite up to Santa Fe's standards, so they said you can't use the name Super Chief anymore, so they renamed it the Southwest Limited. But then by the 1980s, they decided the service had gotten good enough again that they could use the Chief name, but not Super Chief. So it became the Southwest Chief.
Okay, so it's been around for quite
a long time.
A long time. And Amy, I'm going to jump over to you. How did you get involved in the project? How did that all come about?
I got a message from Larry Moore on my Facebook message thing, just saying we're doing a train trip. Do you want to come? I'd never met Larry, and I was just like, yes, sign me up.
How long did it take? How long? I mean, you come to Easton for a week. How long did the trip take?
10 days.
About 10 days, but we did it further because we were on our way out to the plein air convention. The trip that we are advocating for what we are calling the Santa Fe Trail trip, the trip that is shown in the video, is this Chicago, La Junta, blah, 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 to Santa Fe. And that is, that's 6 days, but we would also encourage people to stop for an additional day, because one thing we did discover as we did this, even though you think painting for a day in one town gives you plenty of time, it didn't give you plenty of time, and we felt kind of rushed that we'd just arrive in a place and we'd have to leave. So I think people should set aside 10 days to make the trip.
We have a lot of painters in the audience, as well as just those that are interested. So I think that is one of the things we want to get to, is eventually how can you plan your own and Trent Air sort of trip. Jen, I want to introduce you. How did you get involved in this?
Well, that's a funny story because I was not invited onto this trip, and I didn't know any of these individuals. Larry Moore made the wonderful mistake of publishing his itinerary online, and I thought, well, it's a public train, and can they stop me if I show up? And I fiddled with the idea for weeks. Finally, it was the encouragement of a friend who said, just show up. You never know. Maybe, they won't mind. And I packed up a backpack and drove 5 hours from Denver, that's where I'm from, down to Trinidad, and walked around the town until I found some painters, and I introduced myself, and I said, hi, I'm Jen Whalen, and I'm not going to get in your way. I'm very self-sufficient, and I'm winging it, but I was in love with the idea from the moment I read about it. I wanted adventure and beauty, and to see my own backyard. I want to travel with purpose, and I found it. And it just so happens over the course of a few days, they started to see that I was not crazy, one, and two, that I was able to make a useful contribution, because I really like to write little posts about what was happening and what it meant. And to experience something is only the first step. If you share that story, invite other people to join you, that's what makes it really special. That's what keeps it continuing.
Right. Well, now that we've introduced everybody, I do want to open it up to questions in the audience, because I'm sure, like myself, you just have tons of things you can ask, so please feel free to do that. Charlie, talk about saving the line. All right.
As soon as, if you notice eyes glazing over, just whack me really hard. I'm slightly on the spectrum here. But the line between Chicago and Los Angeles is the one that right now is critically endangered, because it is the poster child for Amtrak's their new policy. And last fall, Amtrak said that starting in the spring of 2019, they were going to truncate the Southwest Chief in Kansas City and truncate it in Albuquerque. So it would go LA to Albuquerque and Chicago to Kansas City, and then just run a bus between Kansas City and Albuquerque. And anybody who wanted to ride that train that's how they'd do it. The pushback was immediate and vociferous, especially from the so-called flyover states, whose I don't know exactly why the head of Amtrak is quite as politically tone deaf as he is, because the flyover states have 2 senators just like the populated states. And me, I'm a left-wing, tree-hugging, dirt-eating liberal. And right now, my best buddy is right-wing Kansas Senator Jerry Moran, who has stepped in and is fighting to keep the Southwest Chief going. So this line is really the canary in the coal mine for the future of America's long-distance, the truly national passenger rail network. And if we allow Amtrak to chop this one in half, then they're going to do that systematically to all the other long-distance routes. So the strange anomaly of this trip that's also part of the real beauty of it is there's a portion of the line that is no longer used by freight trains. Amtrak is the only regularly scheduled service over it. Just the freight line does a longer route that avoids the Raton Pass area. So Amtrak uses the line twice a day, one train each way. And the infrastructure infrastructure there is beautifully maintained, but it is essentially a previous generation of railroad infrastructure. It is the last in the country where those semaphore signals are still in use. There was a brief clip of us passing a semaphore. It's basically a step back in time to a different era of American railroading. And the train we were on, it has dining car, observation lounge car, sleeping cars. I think all my painter friends was their first time in a sleeping car overnight. Jen was in steerage, but she didn't join us until Trinidad, so she missed the overnight anyway.
Based on that, Amy, that description of the going through the town, what did you find in the towns that you visited?
What did you find in the train? I wonder.
The train?
Yeah, I was gonna say-
What did you find in the train?
For one thing, it's different to arrive in a town by train than to drive there, because it just feels different. Like when you're in a train, you're higher up, but you have a view, and it's passing, and you don't have to navigate or pay attention except visually, which is perfect. And then when you arrive in town, especially for us, it was that first town we got to. There were a lot of people waiting on the platform.
Yeah, that was the coolest thing.
Well, they were waiting for us. That's what we didn't realize. We got off the train and they were like, "Hi," and they like a bunch of people, and it was like the mayor and the former mayor and the president of the local arts league and the director of the museum and a whole bunch of people, and they were like, "We saw that you were coming to our town, and we're really excited. We want to come out and welcome you."
And there were so many unexpected little joys. Like in that town, in La Junta, Colorado, they were like, "Now this evening, we've arranged a reception for you at the museum." And we were like, "Oh, we just want to, go take a shower and drink beer." And we went out to the museum, and it's like a world-class collection of Western art, the world's largest.
But it's like one of those
Kiva.
best kept secret museums, because it's a museum that the Kiva was hand built by their
Boy
scout
Scouts.
troop, but it's the largest wood, like unsupported wood. They made it like a bird's nest. It's like utility poles going around and around and stacking and stacking and stacking. So there's this huge domed ceiling made out of timbers. It's amazing. And then their art collection, the scout troop that they started years and years ago, it was their thing every year to raise money and then buy art. So they have this art collection that includes Edgar Payne, among others. There's a lot of beautiful paintings. And then they also had to learn Native American handicrafts, so they all learned the beadwork and the leather work. And then their museum is just full of pottery and Native clothing, and we were floored, and we all felt a little like, oh, we
Right,
didn't expect it to be so great.
Right,
We thought we
were so cool. And then we go,
yeah, we got schooled.
and the thing was so great. The mayor, when we were leaving the next morning, he came bombing down the platform in his Jeep and gave us all pens
With
that had little levels.
Levels, a little bubble and a little ruler on it.
Yeah.
Very
And
useful.
he said, "You people are beautiful. You people are beautiful. What you're doing is beautiful."
I couldn't help but notice in the video that I used this word this morning, so I'm hesitant to use it again, but it seemed like did you fall in love with the idea of the trains when you were doing this? I mean, it seemed very romantic what you sort of captured there in the video. I don't know if that's what you were going for or not.
I mean, I was steeped in sentimentality for the last month, of playing with this. We had no shortage of footage at all. But yeah, I think it was kind of romantic. When you go on a trip like this, where every moment matters, the journey really is the heart and soul of it. And you get to know these people and share stories and, share meals together. It's very intimate. It's very special. It's something that, is my favorite memory now.
And we all shot a lot of video and took a lot of photos, and we were uploading those on a daily basis. So we had a lot of video, but there's so much to look at. Every time the landscape going by constantly on the train, it was beautiful.
It is so, the journey itself is inherently epic, especially for us painters, when you get on that train, you're watching a movie of the American West. You're paralleling the Santa Fe Trail and Route 66. You're seeing the backside of all these towns. You're seeing where stuff happened.
Yeah, and the you know the terrain things go down that you have to stop for when you're in your car, but they go down and you're going between, and all the cars are stopped on the other side. So you really feel in a very real way that you're on the other side of something. You've always been on the car side, watching the train go by, and it's a really interesting experience.
Charlie, I'm going to switch subjects in 1 second, but I want to ask you, how appreciative were the people? You said the mayor was,
Right.
and how important was it for you that they got what you were trying to do?
It was really heartening. I mean, because to me, what we're trying to do is really a three-part thing. One is to encourage people to do plein air painting. Another is the rail advocacy, and the third is to try to help the idea of arts as economic driver for small town America, just as the Avalon Foundation has done with Plein Air Easton. Think of how much money that is bringing to Easton, not in terms of art sales, but just in terms of restaurants, hotels, people buying the craft store. If what we want to do is encourage artists, encourage you guys to get a bunch of your friends together and do this trip and help. These little towns need our help. They're struggling because the economic drivers that were there, the coal mining, whatever, is gone. And that was one of the things that really moved us, I think. When in Raton, the city council, were these lunch bucket, blue collar guys, were there in the station with us, and they said, we know the coal mines aren't coming back. The arts are going to be what helps us transform this town. And if we could get 24 groups a year, if
That'd be awesome.
twice a month a bunch of artists come through on the train and do the trip we did, that can start making a difference for these little towns.
And I have to say, traveling on the train is a wonderful way to travel with a small group of friends. It's unlike anything else because you can hang out together or you can go off by yourself. You can have your meals together. Nobody's the driver, although Charlie does boss you around all the time. It's really fun.
Traveling with artists.
What?
The train's coming. The train's coming,
We never
Randy.
miss it.
Don't go off and look the junk car over there.
But also the magic is every time there was a sunset or something beautiful coming out, Charlie would yell, decrepitude or semaphore, or we would all ooh and awe at the same time. I mean, joy shared is joy magnified.
And another thing is, Charlie's so familiar with the route that sometimes with a little bit of preparation, the anticipation gives you a greater capacity for appreciation. So in the morning, we'd get on the train and I'd say, so Charlie, tell us what to expect today. And then I would shoot video of him telling us, well, we're going to go. And he would describe like every chapter of that day's ride in advance. We're going to go up this grade, and then we're going to go through this tunnel, and then we'll see a semaphore, and then there's this great area where you can look down in the ravine, and it was exciting. Yeah.
And see, the great thing about having Jen join our group is Jen's background is in like nonprofit management and stuff. And so she is building our website that's going to have a route guide of all my distilled knowledge. So people can be like, on the left is going to be this strange little post office, that is, the foundation is cracking, but we're going up the hill very slowly at that time. So you get a good shot on it. On the left, it's after the grain store, that's her.
Okay, because he's ridden this train 70 times.
And I aim to ride at another 70 before I check out.
I was going to say, are you going to go every 24 times a year with these guys? Jen, you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing? I guess I would preface that. Is that what you were expecting to happen, that somebody would come on who would get this kind of going like this?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Jen appeared, a wraith-like visage on the platform in Trinidad.
And we were like, oh, a young person
Yeah.
with a sketchbook. What's that?
Cool.
And also the whole time we had a lot of conversations about how could we involve more people in this, because and ultimately it was that get a group of friends and ride this, because it would be fairly unwieldy to have a lot of people, like, you know.
Well,
Workshop-sized groups doing it at
the
once.
original model we were thinking of is we would do it like a workshop of, you know, here are ride with the 6 painters and we'll show you.
Yeah,
help
and
you set up
almost
your
immediately we're like, that is never
Not
gonna
gonna
work. Yeah.
Okay, Jen?
I like to dance to my own tune, so I don't know that would work for me anyways, because on a lot of the stops, I said, well, see ya, and then I, would hitch up my giant hiker backpack, because I was carrying everything I had with me, and I would go on a hike for the day, and I would go exploring and sketch wherever I liked, and everyone chose their own sketch and painting spots. But I guess I'm the success story of the groupie who made their way onto the band somehow. That wasn't what was meant to happen, but I think it was really serendipitous. And, I'm proof that people do want this, and it was only possible because you guys forged the way, and it made it safe for someone like me to say, well, then I can do it too. And that's exactly what the DIY guide is for. It's really remarkable to go on a trip to paint through Europe, but so many folks haven't even seen their own backyards. And, when you do a trip abroad, you just want to get there so you can experience it. And this is so new, so different, because you really get to enjoy the whole thing from start to finish. The being on the train is more than half the fun. But then I found that at each of these towns, I just fell in love. I fell in love again and again with the folks, with the history, with the remarkable buildings. They're just hidden diamonds that you could so easily overlook. And how many opportunities do you have to say that this is a fully beneficial package where everyone is getting rewards? Like the town is getting quite a bit of stimulus from, any participation of artists coming through. The artists get to see something unique that, really is endangered, that might not be there in 50 years. These buildings, a lot of them are dilapidated, they're falling down, and it is sort of a race to see them before they're gone, and they're remarkable pieces of history. The buildings, now I'm forgetting the name of all the hotels, the Harvey.
Castaneda?
Like the Castaneda. The whole line is bedazzled with the Fred Harvey hotels. Charlie knows a lot more about this piece of history than me, but they're gobsmackingly gorgeous. And they're all being renovated, the ones that are left. And it's just a treat to go and to stay in one. We did get to stay at Las Vegas, and was it the La Posada?
La Posada's in Winslow,
Winslow.
Arizona.
That's because we were continuing on to the plein air convention, and La Posada is one of the great surviving. The Harvey houses were basically railroad hotels that, before the era of dining cars,
They created destinations along the route, and for people to come, like the rich and famous, to come down from Chicago, and gave them places to go. But La Posada is one of the most special places I've ever been. That building is spiritual.
and it's an affordable hotel. It's in Winslow,
Yeah.
Arizona. It's about $120 a night. And you can take the train from LA or Chicago to Winslow, and there's a world-class restaurant and excellent
Yeah.
martini bar.
Is Winslow, Arizona?
Yeah,
That's
what
Winslow,
really matters.
Arizona, and the
in the
Steve
Eagles
Miller
song.
song. Or Steve Miller,
Yeah.
The Eagles.
Yeah.
Don't bring that up to Charlie, he doesn't like this.
It's like it's
Man, I
Steve
hate
Miller.
the
I love the
man.
Eagles.
I think it's Steve
man.
Miller.
I
I
just
think
love the
it's- pretty
Eagles.
sure
That's
Steve
such a
Miller.
great song.
No, it's not Steve Miller.
I think it is. Anyway,
It was co-written by Jackson Brown and Glenn
love
Fry.
Jackson Brown.
We're gonna-
And it's an excrescence.
I love that song.
Hate that song.
It's
we're
great.
going to we're going to take a quick break before we come back with Jen Whalen, Amy Erickson, and Charlie Hunter. Their N Train Air talk they're giving right now. Hopefully, we have some questions from the audience, and then get to how you can become a part of it even further, and where this whole original concept is going. We'll be right back in just 1 second with after these messages.
This Plein Air Easton special live event is brought to you by PNC Wealth Management, committed to putting you first. Visit pnc.com to explore what PNC Wealth Management can do for you.
Some weekends seem to last forever when nonstop applications become nonstop discovery. And in the heart of Maryland's Eastern Shore hides an annual haven of art, instruction, and entertainment. The country's largest outdoor painting competition, Plein Air Easton. There, you can trade in the ordinary routine for an energetic festival. Exchange housework for a night or two at a bed and breakfast. And swap never enough time with we should do this more often. Take a weekend for yourself to explore, to paint, to experience something new. Your immersive art weekend begins at pleinaireaston.com.
Hi, welcome back, everyone. This is Coffee and Conversations inside the Avalon Theater at the Avalon Foundation, part of Plein Air Easton's 2019 competition and festival. We're here again with Charlie Hunter, Amy Erickson, and Jen Whalen, talking about their recent spring trip, initial trip on the Chief Line from Chicago to Santa Fe that they took in Plein Air and Tren Air. And we're here discussing that trip with the audience inside the Avalon. We do have some questions online that we're going to get to, as well as some questions from the audience. I want to take a quick second to thank PNC Wealth Management and also to welcome the Plein Air Easton class this year of young painters that are up on the stage real quick. We're back now. Jess, do you have some questions online right away?
I've got one question online. It is from somebody named Bonnie Erickson. Maybe of relation or maybe not, I don't know. It says, Amy, how have plein air events affected the direction of your art, and what would you like to see change at plein air events? There you go.
Thanks for that question, Bonnie. Here's my sister. The plein air events have been a really great platform because it's organized and it brings people in. So you're not just hanging out with artists, and that's been one of the best things. And this is one of the best run events. I don't think I would only change the temperature outside.
Then we'd lose our charm. I can take other questions from people in the audience if we can speak it into the mic. Does anyone have a question?
Let's get a question right here.
Oh, yes. I arrived a little late, so I may have missed your explanation, but I was just wondering, in terms of trying to expand this program, and by the way, I love the idea of trying to help some of these small towns that have lost their primary industries and helping them reinvigorate the town through arts. But I was just wondering, are you thinking about possibilities of other routes, or is it only this route
That's a really
that
good
you're
question,
thinking about?
and Charlie will tell us.
We are absolutely, in the long term, we would love to expand it. Right now, this route is kind of our guinea pig. Jen is creating the website, We're creating the how-to guide. We'll learn from that what information, we think we're imparting that we aren't. And from that, once we can get that up and established, I absolutely would love to have it extend to other routes. Because there are 19 long-distance routes in the U.S. And there should be 50, but that's a separate discussion. And they're all in danger right now. So I think it can totally be expanded. But Jen and I talked about this a lot. We don't want to be spread too thin. Let's get this one nailed. And it's also such a perfect trip, because the thing that I knew would work about this trip, having been on that route so many times, and it's not just because I'm insane. I've been on that route so many times because our long distance, the music trains used to go on that route all the time. The thing that is perfect about this route is you can do it entirely on the train. All the motels are within 2/10 to a half mile was the furthest one. Trinidad was the furthest. And there are restaurants within walking distance. It's all totally doable. And it also, this one ends in Santa Fe. And what better place for an arts trip to end than in Santa Fe, New Mexico?
Go ahead, Jess.
Okay, we've got a question from one of our campers.
What artists do you guys look up to and why?
What artists do you look up to and why?
You want to start us off?
Well, there's so many. I think I've spent my whole life admiring different artists, and I think part of the joy for me of doing the plein air events is I'm so inspired by meeting my peers whose work I really admire, and Charlie's one of them, and there's a bunch of other ones at this event, and as well as like so many dead ones, a lot.
I mean, it sounds a little morbid.
Yeah, that's the thing though, is are they living or dead? There's a clear line. Yeah.
Oh, well, gosh. Yeah, in terms of dead ones, I'm a huge fan of Wyeth. I think one of the most beautiful signs of mastery is doing more with less. But I would say I am most inspired by my contemporaries, the folks who are living and doing remarkable things. That's why I showed up to Entraîneur, and that's why I'm here in Plein Air Easton, because when you're with people who are passionate about the same things as you, gosh, your heart just sings. There's no better place to be,
But since you're a student and you're asking, I will say you should look up Bernie Fuchs, because he is one of my all-time favorite.
Did you get that name?
I'll say it again. Fuchs. Because you know how Norman Rockwell was the most important American illustrator in the first half of the 20th century? Bernie Fuchs would occupy that role for the second half of the 20th century. He was so innovative. He was one of the greatest designers. His name is Bernie Fuchs, Fuchs, and he's also, I see a lot of his influence in Charlie's work too.
And also Patrick Saunders is very Fuchsian.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fuchs rocks.
Yeah.
The figurative artists are wonderful, but then also I would encourage people to, just like we can love crab cakes, it doesn't mean you don't love Vietnamese food too, or Italian food. Look at non-representational art. Look at Franz Klein, Kline, what he does with positive and negative space informs my work, certainly, and I think many of my contemporaries. Xing Bao, a Chinese artist, he makes 200-foot-long phoenixes out of trash from construction sites in Beijing. And at Mass MoCA, you walk underneath these, and they're spiritual and beautiful constructions, and they're made out of discarded acetylene tanks and junk. It's not just the act of putting brush to a canvas. There's so many ways of expressing creativity. And yes, 90% of it is crap, but famously, as Philip K. Dick said about science fiction, when asked, Mr. Dick, is it not true that 90% of science fiction is crap? He said, yes, it is, but 90% of everything is crap. So.
Are there other questions?
Jess,
Yep, we've got one here.
Back there.
Yep.
Thank you. I have a lot of questions. I'm going to try to prioritize. I really enjoy both art and train travel. I've always been enamored with how you can kind of bop all over Europe by train. And I was kind of curious why you thought it's different in America. Is it our distances? Is it something culturally? And do you think that it's possible to do this type of trip for other things? I guess I'm kind of thinking about vacations with children and things like that.
It would be doable with kids, but the walking might be kind of a problem. If you're the thing that'd be great about doing it with kids is that none of the once you've done that big overnight from Chicago to La Junta, the other stops are all like 1 or 2 hour stops, so the kids aren't going to get totally bored and be the excitement of the train arriving every single day. Ideally, I would suggest if you have kids and you're a couple, one of you be support in a minivan, because we did have a minivan. This is our dark, dirty secret. My assistant in the music train, Sarah Ovenden, was doing recon about a future trip that we might do. So she had a minivan, because 6 artists, we all packed way too heavily. One of the things we'll be doing in the DIY guide is encouraging people to pack as minimally as possible. Larry Moore had a gouache set up, and that made a lot of sense. Because those of us with oils, it was lugging a lot of crap. But if I was doing this trip with little kids, I would do it with my partner in a minivan. Me and the kids get on the train for an hour and meet up. That'd make it easier.
We saw people on the train with kids, though.
How about the difference between traveling on this rail and Europe, which she's asked?
Trains are similar. The schedules are better in Europe. There's more trains and they run on time.
Right, but my problem with Europe is the trains over there are too efficient. I love the goofiness of the thing that's wonderful. One of the things I think is wonderful about Amtrak is, or passenger rail in the U.S., is it still feels like this kind of vestigial means of travel. It's endearingly quirky, and it may be vanishing. So it's now's the time. In foreign countries, rail is really the way to go. I think Australia would be fairly similar to the U.S. in it has a few epic journeys.
I think for patriots and history buffs also, what's fascinating about our railway is that it all touches history since our country is so young, and you can see really the beginnings, the springs of every single one of these towns. The first buildings and what it meant to America. You can see our progression as a people across the country, and that's really what stitched us all together. These rural towns was the railroad, and it's still vastly important to them. Several of the folks that we spoke to in each of the towns had said, if the train stopped running, we don't know what we would do. It would really cut us off from the outside world. And I don't know if that's the same in Europe.
So to that end, the Avalon Foundation in Plenary Easton is collecting paintings for an agricultural collection, where the intent by the sponsors is to use that collection as a form of advocacy through its exhibition and through taking it to places where it might have political influence. I guess, are there any thoughts or plans to use a body of work that's being created by people who are going on these trains to create advocacy as well? Is that a possibility? Maybe you're not there.
That's a great question.
We've had some conversations about it, and there's a Rail History Center in Portland, Oregon, where I live, for example, that has expressed an interest in hosting a show. So we're not at that point yet, but we have we're making paintings, so there probably will be.
Right. And I'm in touch, I am partnering with the Center for Railway Photography and Art. You have to be very careful in the order, because if it's Center for Railroad Art and Photography, it has a very unfortunate acronym. But Center for Railroad Photography and Art, and they do touring shows to railroad museums and smaller art museums. So that is definitely a possibility.
I think one of the most exciting projects that is going to happen from this is the legacy plaque that's going to go in the Lamy Train Depot. So we're still working on getting that set up, but we have approval for this space for any single or group of artists who complete the tour, and then they provide us with evidence, with photos and where they painted at each stop. They're going to get their names on a plaque, a brass plaque, and it's going to go up in the depot. So really it's going to be this prestigious little legacy, this group of people who have made a real difference to those towns.
Yeah, and as you guys are thinking about maybe do I want to grab 4 of my friends and do this, A, you'll end up with your name on a plaque in Lamy, New Mexico. B, Amtrak has started a program where the first traveler pays full price. It's for groups of up to 4 and multiples thereof. But the first traveler is full price, second traveler is 15% off, third traveler is 30% off, and fourth traveler is 70% off. So it averages about 30% off. But it's not off the cheapest fare, it's off the second cheapest fare, so we can get into the weeds.
So there's a question online from our friend Zafar Bikboff, who's probably in the field still working on his competition painting while listening. Oh, you're texting, you're live chatting from this space? Are you afraid to get on the microphone? He was wondering how financially affordable it is. So can you be like more specific about the range of, if you're gonna go on this 6-day trip and you're paying full freight, what are you gonna come out of pocket for?
And it's very transparent on the FAQ. I don't have the numbers in my head right now. I'm not as good at memory retention with numbers, but Charlie.
Basically, the big expense is the sleeping car. That is, you should book as far in advance as possible, because just like the airlines, they're fare buckets.
But do you know how much the whole trip would have cost us if we paid?
Well, I'll do it very, very quickly. Assume the motel averages out at $70 a night, but that's for 2 people in a room, so $35 per person per night. The train, each train segment, aside from that first one, is about $20. That's fair. That's a fair ballpark. And the overnight, if you get far enough in advance, sleeping car room, it should be about $200 a person. And that includes your dinner and your breakfast, cooked on board, and it's pretty good. So I think about $600 for the basic cost, plus however much you want to spend on little luxuries.
And there's ways to do it less. I did it. And that'll be part of the upcoming blog post on how to pack one bag to make this work for you, and also how to be as economic or as luxurious as you want to be for a trip like this.
So what was to do it as bare bones as you did it, what was your...
Weren't you couch surfing, Jen?
Does anyone know what couch surfer is? It's like Airbnb, but people host you as more of a personal exchange, that you share a meal with your host, or art. In my case, I was, rubbing pennies and charm and getting by on that for a while. So yeah, you can find folks all over the world if you make a profile on couchsurfer.com, and you can find hosts. So I was really winging it by...
For free.
For free. There's no monetary transaction. I did the whole trip in less than $400.
Do you sell paintings along the trip? Did that happen?
We had that show in San Jose.
Oh, you have a show. You schedule a show.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, one could, but the expectation. I mean, if we're selling stuff at a minimum of $600 a pop, that's really kind of out of the range of the people who are stopping by to say how much they appreciate your being in their town.
Right. Sure. Okay. Jess, you have anything else? Anybody else have any questions for these?
Oh, we've got one in the back.
Yes, and before as you walk away, Now, I know that they're talking to a lot of artists here, but as people who are just maybe collectors or sort of visiting in on this talk, don't you kind of feel like you want to go on the train track even though you're not a painter? I really do kind of feel that way. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yes. How many times can you get on and off the train? Like, how many stops? And is that like one price? They allow you to keep getting on and off, or you pay between?
No, the way you have to do it by buying individual tickets between each of those stops, and that actually is to one's advantage. It sounds like a big pain in the neck to do it that way, but it's to one's advantage because if the conductor does not actually scan your ticket, he has this little booping machine. He's supposed to scan the ticket and go boop. If it was a multi-part ticket and he neglected to do that, it would cancel all the future parts of your trip because the computer would say, oh, that person never showed up on this first segment. So you have to buy a bunch of individual tickets, and we will walk you through how to do that on the website. It's less daunting than you think.
Okay. Charlie, how, and Amy, and Jen, thank you guys for showing up. As we get ready to wrap this up, how can we help, or what sort of message do you want to just let people know about that they can help both for the activism on this and how they would do that through, plein air painting?
Okay. Well, in terms of rail advocacy, in terms of economic development through the arts and building small town community, follow what the Avalon Foundation is doing. They're an incredible example of that. My old client and dear friend Dar Williams has written a book called What I Learned in 1,000 Towns that is very much about this topic. If you're interested in rail advocacy, the Rail Passengers Association is the voice for passenger advocacy. If you're on Facebook, there's a wonderful group. It's very even-handed politically, called Friends of the Southwest Chief. And it's run by this guy named Evan Stair, who I've never met, but he does tremendously good work. Let's see, Jen, do you want to jump in on?
Yeah, if you're looking for a high impact, low investment adventure, this is the way to do it. And it's a way to feel.
Right, and follow our website.
Yeah, I'll be passing a little sign-up list after. If you're interested in hearing our updates, we'll have some articles coming out too.
You might as well say the website if you could, real quick.
Yeah, ontrainair.org.
ENTRI.
Yeah, and we have cards.
We have cards.
We have a logo.
We have a logo.
Charlie also has some merchandise on the store, which is really lovely.
We have shirts.
One that says "Save the Southwest Chief," which I haven't gotten mine yet. I've got to get
And
one.
all proceeds from the Save the Southwest Chief, from the shirts, go to efforts to save the Southwest Chief.
Yeah.
So.
Amy, did you want to put last remarks?
Why to do it? About what?
Okay. Well,
About why to do the trip?
Oh, why to do the trip? Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Do the trip. Do the trip.
Do the trip.
You heard her.
it sounds really, really just like a fascinating way to see the country, as you said.
Can I do one
Sure.
last thing? Our vision, our dream is to have this become like doing the Camino Real in Spain. It is. We want it to become a journey that plein air painters take together in celebration, and we have these wonderful friends in these towns now, and with Jen on our team, we're turning Entraîneur into an actual nonprofit, and as you asked about expanding it to other routes, I mean, we really see the economic driver that the arts can be, and a force for good, for something just beyond our making images. Our love can create other opportunities and goodness, and I think it's just really exciting.
I think it's true. What you give your attention to, that thing will grow. And so just by giving our attention and looking at things, and it'll give new energy there.
And we'd love you to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And something tells me they're not going to stop until that happens. So, Thank you all. If there's no more questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap this so everybody can continue painting or continue just enjoying the air conditioning. We have been listening to Charlie, Amy, and Jen talk about their very unique and very niche sort of experience in Trenair. And the webpage is again
Entrenair.org.
Entrenair, I'm sorry.
ENTRAIN.
Entrenair.org. ENTRAIN.org. And
Get a card
they're
from us.
building it to answer all your questions about this very unique way to see the country paint in plein air and make a difference for a lot of people who actually need it.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.